So with the winter transfer window closing a couple of weeks ago and teams now finalising their squads for the rest of the season, I thought I would go through a few of the interesting deals that had been done, because this is quite unusual for the winter transfer window. You might get like 1 or 2 good deals, but to get a few like this is actually quite unusual. And I think it would be interesting to go through some of those deals, because some of them were expected and some of them were actually not so expected. So the first player on the list is a name that I have no clue how to pronounce. I've looked it up a bit, but I'm probably going to botch this like mad. So I think it said Khvicha Kvaratskhelia. He's a Georgian player that played for Napoli, and he's been an up-and-comer for the past couple of years. And he's gone from Napoli to PSG for 70 million euros plus add-ons. So like I said, he's burst onto the scene the last couple of years, and he has actually made a huge impact at Napoli. A lot of people have kind of seen his skills and all that, and how he beats players on the dribble and on the ball and everything. But in Napoli's title-winning season, he was actually a big role in that, scoring 12 goals and getting 13 assists in 34 games. And I find it interesting that he's actually gone to PSG, because I think a player like this could easily thrive in that environment, because obviously Ligue 1 isn't the most competitive league in the world, and PSG are by far the most dominant team in that league. So I do think it will be interesting to see how he fits in that team and what kind of role he plays in that team. So the second player we've got on our list is someone who's actually been quite hyped up for a while, and this is Xavi Simons. So he's gone from PSG to RB Leipzig for 50 million euros plus 31 million in potential add-ons. So like I said, he's been a very hyped up player from a very young age, and he's also already been around a couple of clubs. So he's been obviously at PSG, he's also been on loan to PSV, and now he's going to RB Leipzig. And considering I think he's in like his early 20s, 3 clubs is quite a lot for a player of that age. So he's been around a few clubs a bit, and I do think that this could do his career a lot of good, because when you're at PSG, you're basically in the spotlight. They're a big club. They're usually doing quite well in the Champions League, so you're in all of these big games, and there's this kind of pressure, especially if you're a young player that's been hyped up, to actually play like a superstar very early on. And with Xavi Simons not being that superstar type player all the time, there's always that pressure, and you can be liable to bust very easily. So I do think that him moving to Leipzig, not a lesser known club, but a club that's less in the spotlight, I do think could help him at least develop into that kind of superstar type player that everyone expects him to be. Also, alongside this, he also has plenty of time to go and live up to the hype that was put on him. I think it was like 3 years ago or something. So it's not like he's a bust, it's just that I think he needs time. So the third player we've got was a bit of a surprise one, to be honest. Jhon Duran has gone from Aston Villa to Saudi Pro League club Al Nassr for 77 million euros. And this is really just like another big money Saudi move. However, it's not one of those players that is like in their 30s. They're not necessarily past it, but they're coming towards the end of their prime and the end of their career, and they're just looking for a big money move. This has also come alongside the Saudi Pro League looking more at younger players to try and build the league, because if they can bring in younger players and they can help them develop, then the league's going to get better, the quality of football's going to be better, and then hopefully that brings in more viewers, and then from there on, if the quality's better, more people are going to watch, and then that brings in TV sponsorships and all things like that. So it looks like they're looking less at older kind of big names and trying to bring in a lot of the young players, which means the European clubs are also going to have a lot of competition now, which I do think will be interesting, because it would be good to see kind of another league getting those types of players instead of it just being Europe all the time. Now the next player we're moving on to is Mathys Tel. So this is the first loaned player on this list, and he's been loaned from Bayern Munich to Tottenham Hotspur. Another very young player, he's only 19, and a loan would have been the most likely option, because he's a very good player. It's difficult for him to get in the Bayern Munich team, and he's very unlikely to get a lot of play time at Bayern Munich because of his age and because of the quality of their players. So the best option really for him was to go out on loan, and to get a loan at Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League, which you would think he wouldn't be playing. Well, you'd think he'd be playing because he's on loan, but you wouldn't think he'd be starting that much. However, I think in the first couple of games he's played, he's actually started, so it looks like Tottenham want to incorporate him into the team and give him quite a lot of play time, which is exactly what Bayern Munich would want. So hopefully for Mathys, when he goes back to Bayern Munich, he can get more well, not necessarily a starting role, but he can get a bigger role at Bayern, or potentially he could make a move out of Bayern, which I do see as very unlikely because of his age and because of kind of how hyped up he is. And now the next player is kind of one where it's a bit of a fall from grace. So it's Joao Felix, who has been loaned from Chelsea to AC Milan. And I'm going to call him a former wonder kid because he has fallen off in the past several years. When he was at Atletico Madrid, he was like the next great kind of superstar player. He's still a good player, I would say, but I just don't think he's anywhere near where his potential was, because people thought he was, like I said, going to be this next big superstar player, probably a Ballon d'Or contender when he was at Atletico Madrid, and he has fallen off quite a bit in the last few years. And he seems to do better in Europe, like outside of the Premier League, because he seems to have struggled a bit in the Premier League, but he was doing so well in La Liga, and when he was playing for Chelsea in Europe, he was doing better there. So after this, I do think that a permanent move is more likely after his loan, whether that's somewhere else outside of Chelsea or whether it is to actually AC Milan. And I think that this is because he hasn't really done much domestically in England, even though he's only had, I think, like 6 months in the Premier League. Clubs do tend to move off players a lot quicker now, which I personally don't think is fair, because when you go to a new league and a new country, you kind of need time to like play into that and make your style work in that country, but that's just how it works. Also, he is still only 25 years old, so he could still improve a lot, and I think he can improve a lot, because 25 players can play until the early mid-30s and still play at a very high level. So coming to our first defender on the list, we have Milan Skriniar, who has been loaned from PSG to Fenerbahce, and he was another high potential player that has kind of fallen off in the past year. So when he was at Inter Milan, he was a very highly touted prospect, and then he makes a big transfer to PSG. I think Skriniar's transfer to PSG was actually a free, but like I said, he was one of the most highly touted defensive prospects in the world when he was at Inter Milan, and a lot of clubs were trying to get his signature. But ever since he's gone to PSG, he seems to have fallen off a bit, and I'm guessing his performances must have fallen off, because now he's on loan at Fenerbahce, and when a player like Skriniar makes a move like that, it's usually a bad sign that they've fallen off and that the team they're at is looking to get rid of them, but other clubs aren't willing to come in and buy them yet, so they send them on loan to a team like Fenerbahce. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. If Skriniar's performances pick up, PSG might give him another chance to actually play in the team, or if they don't pick up, they'll probably just move on and sell him. And unlike PSG, they wouldn't actually be making a loss out of this, because they did get him for free, so whatever PSG decide to do with him when he comes back off loan, they're not really going to be losing out here. And now to, once again, another loan transfer. There were quite a few big loan transfers in this window. So now we have Kyle Walker, who has been loaned from Manchester City to AC Milan. And at 34 years old, Man City are probably looking to actually move on from him. So I do think it is a bit weird that they've sent him out on loan. A 34-year-old right back being sent out on loan. I thought they would have just tried to sell him. So while on loan, City are probably going to be looking at other fullbacks that could potentially permanently replace Walker in the starting lineup, and if they can't find anyone, they might just bring Walker back off loan, or when he comes back off loan, City might just put him in the starting lineup again. I don't know. I'm guessing that they'll probably sell him, because especially at his age, and if he doesn't perform that well, they'll want to move on from him, but I don't know why they sent him out on loan. I can only guess. And now moving on to the last one, and probably the most high profile one. This was Marcus Rashford being loaned from Manchester United to Aston Villa. And for Rashford, it's been a big struggle for him. His performances have dropped off dramatically. He really isn't playing that well, so this really doesn't surprise me. And the reason Rashford has been sent out on loan instead of it being an actual full transfer is because it's been a real struggle for Man United to actually sell him due to his high wages. I think he's on like £300,000 a week or something. So Man United are really only left with one option, and that's loaning him out to try and get some of his wages off their books. And obviously the loan will take off some of his wages from United's books. It won't take all of it off, because I don't think really any clubs would be willing to loan out Rashford and pay his full wages, because, you know, they may as well buy him at that point. But I do think that this is a bit of a smart move from United, because that money that you can get off your books for like the rest of the season, for like 6 months, will do something for the financial situation. But for Marcus Rashford, I think that this is a sign that he will probably never play for United again, especially after his massive performance drop and the fact that he's basically been on the bench for like most of this season that he was at Man United. So I do think that this just spells the end of Marcus Rashford at Man United. It's just, can Man United get someone to actually buy Rashford instead of loaning him out? Because obviously when he comes back, if no one wants to buy him, they'll probably just have to loan him out again just to get the wages off their books. So those are just my thoughts on some of the transfers that I found interesting in the winter window. Basically, what do you think was the most interesting transfer in this transfer window? Put that down in the comments and put why you think it was the most interesting. And if you have multiple ones, put them down as well, and obviously why they're interesting. So if you like the video, leave a like. Also, don't forget to comment down below about this transfer window as a whole as well. And yeah, so thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.